Hey everyone, and welcome to the Perfect Bite podcast, your fusion of food and entrepreneurship. You'll hear stories from chefs, restaurateurs, CPG brands, and more from the food and bev industry. All of them are at different points in their journeys, talking about their experiences and how they've cooked up something new. Let's dig in. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. As we all lean into cooking more at home these days, it's important to have tools that make your food feel restaurant quality, delicious, and well-made, without taking hours to prepare. Enter the Tovala oven, the OG countertop oven that uses proprietary steam technology to help cook or bake your food. You can either choose your own settings or sign up for the incredibly delectable and fresh meal plans, which my partner Tim and I have ordered for years. Today's guest is behind this amazing cooking technology and new lifestyle of convenient home cooking. And he's paved the way for other food founders to reach new heights. Please welcome founder and CEO of Tovala, David Rabie. David!
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so happy to have you on here. I feel like you are just one of these amazing food founders from Chicago that I've admired for years. So I'm so happy you could take the time.
Thank you.
I can't wait for everyone to hear your story here. Again, the Tovala is always featured on The Perfect Bite. It's always here in the corner. I was just using it today with my Trader Joe's breaded chicken that I was using on top of my chicken Caesar salad. So it gets a lot of use in the house.
I love that.
How many do you have in your house?
I'm only allowed to have one on our countertop. Despite trying for many years to put two on there, there's another one in storage, but only one, sadly.
I was thinking, is it the whole, like the kitchen's like Tovala, Tovala, Tovala?
Our test kitchen has a wall of Tavalas. There's like 35 Tavalas against one wall, which is my dream, but not allowed in my house.
Understood. Plus, circuit breakers, all of those things that might happen here.
Yes. Getting the wall of Tovala set up was not a small undertaking.
I'm so excited to hear about the beginning of this story, how you've grown so much to today. Again, you ended up landing on Oprah's favorite things list in the last few years. That is so huge. Her studios used to be right around the corner from your offices. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, super close.
That is so ironic. I love that. Let's take things further back here, though. I always love to start at the beginning. When did you first fall in love with food? What was cooking like in your house growing up? What were those favorite foods you loved to eat?
Yeah, good question. So I grew up in a house where we ate dinner as a family every night. My mom loved to cook, still loves to cook. So home cooked food was par for the course for us. And I think I took that for granted and didn't totally realize how great that was and what that meant for our family until I was older. And it wasn't until I was 18, honestly, that I thought about what I was eating. I think up to that point, I liked really good food. I was always very interested in food, but I didn't really think that much about what impact food can have on me and what are all the ways I can eat. And I was never cooking for myself before that point. And then I went on this retreat with my dad, and the retreat was 5 days of intense hiking and yoga and all vegetarian food. And you see the impact that all those things can have on your body in a very short amount of time. And that was really what opened my eyes up to the power of food and what it can do for you, and set me on this journey that now you look in hindsight and it all makes sense. But as I was going through it, it didn't make a ton of sense. But I did spend most of my career pre-Tovala in and around food. And a lot of my spare time was spent reading about food and going to farmers markets and cooking, and also trying lots of other convenient solutions. And I think all led me to this point to ultimately start Tovala.
Incredible. Are you vegetarian to date, or are you someone who just likes to say, hey, that's a really nice way to lean into every now and then when you want something a little lighter?
Yeah, I've gone through phases. I haven't been vegetarian in a long time. And now we're very much in an omnivore phase. We've got 3 young kids, so a lot of picky eaters around the table. We can imagine. But no, I eat almost everything. We do cook a lot and try to eat super healthy, but not purely vegetarian.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's tough too. I mean, to make that commitment to that lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, if I was to think about the 21 meals a week that we eat, probably 13 to 15 of them are vegetarian. Wow. So you eat a lot of vegetarian food, but I feel like, especially the last couple of years, protein has become like more prevalent. And I think, even me, I've like learned to incorporate more protein into our diet. And so it's just a little harder to do that if you're vegetarian.
Definitely. It would be like cans and cans of chickpeas at a time. And you said protein, and I was like, oh, yes, the proteinification of our entire meal plans. Like, I think
Yes.
Starbucks came out with a protein cold foam recently.
Oh my God.
It's a little cuckoo. It
Yeah.
is very like some of the other diets that we've gone through before. Very keto moment, very Atkins, if we're going way back.
Totally. Totally.
So tell us a little bit more about those other career moments before Tovala here. You mentioned that you were around food. You've had a really interesting trajectory that led you to that aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the noteworthy things to pull out. I spent some time working for the founder of the Veggie Grill,
Mm,
which was one of the pioneers of fast casual plant-based restaurants.
so
So I
good.
think they were ahead of their time. And for the founders, it was their second act. They'd both been successful doing something else. And I was fortunate to meet one of the founders. He took me under his wing. And so I spent probably a couple years at the Veggie Grill doing a bunch of odd jobs, working front of house, back of house, and then helping Kevin with a bunch of different things. And that brand had such a loyal following, and they had built something like, I'd say, borderline cultish with some of their customers and a lot of their employees. And I think that really opened my eyes to like, what can a great brand do? What is it like to be in a startup in a different environment? What's it like to be somewhere where people are really passionate about the mission and obviously very food centric? So that was an awesome part of kind of my early career. And then I got this kind of out of the box opportunity to run a chain of frozen yogurt stores.
Ooh.
And while I was never like a frozen yogurt devotee, like I liked the yogurt land just like anyone else, but this to me was more about great business experience. And I'd always wanted to start my own company. And I felt like this was a really lucky, fortunate way to learn
Yeah.
and run a small business, make a bunch of mistakes, set myself up to go do something bigger and better on the next go around. And so I took a leap of faith and went and worked for these guys again for a couple of years and did learn a ton.
Wow.
I'd learned a ton. Spent a long time not eating frozen yogurt after that stint. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Oh my gosh, you took me back to college with both of those businesses. Yeah, I learned about Veggie Grill being out in the Bay Area. And then that was also the height of frozen yogurt craze was
I
20.
self-serve frozen yogurt everywhere.
It was so good. Bring it back. Let's petition
Right.
to bring back frozen yogurt.
Why do I say there times it's like, why is there not more self-serve froyo?
Seriously. And bring back more gelato shops.
Yeah, I agree.
So, what was your aha moment around Tovala and that technology itself? What were you working on at the time that made you say, this is a problem that I think I need to solve, and this is the really unique solution behind it?
Yeah, I was in business school in Chicago. I'd gone there knowing I wanted to start something in the food space, not having an idea in particular. And because I was so busy at doing God knows what, but I was very busy. So I didn't have as much time to cook. So I was trying some of these more convenient solutions for food.
Yeah.
And, probably if I'm going to dig like really under the surface, I wanted something truly home cooked and made from scratch because of the way I was raised and what I was used to. And really none of the convenient solutions offered that except for meal kits,
Yeah.
but the meal kits didn't solve the time problem. And so I think that's how I lasered in on maybe there's something here. And then I did have this like true aha moment one day when I was cooking for myself, using multiple appliances in my kitchen and just thinking like, there's got to be a better way.
Mm.
The actual process with an oven or a countertop device is a lot of like pushing buttons and turning dials. And I remember thinking maybe you could automate some of that, and that was the very beginning of the idea. Like I was dancing around these other solutions that weren't as good. I had this aha moment. And so the first like tangible idea was maybe we could build some sort of device that would automate the cooking and realize, okay, how you cook your grains versus how you cook your protein versus how you cook your vegetable, for example, are all different. So could you have a device that could like account for all those things and handle the different coordination so that it all finishes simultaneously? That's where it started. And then as I talked to people about the idea and solicited feedback and really wanted to understand how prevalent is this problem and what are people doing for dinner and do people want to eat meals made from scratch, etc., it became clear that the problem is a lot more than just the cooking. And it's actually, starts at planning, then it's shopping, then it's all the prep, the chopping, the marinating, cutting, etc., then the cooking, which a lot of people actually enjoy.
Yes.
And it's like that whole end-to-end journey is what needs solving for, but all of the solutions required a compromise on taste or freshness or health. And so the idea very quickly evolves from not just this magical device, but hey, we're also going to go do the food so that we can deliver on this promise of we're going to take away all the pain points, but you're still going to get a meal that's made from scratch that tastes amazing, that makes your home smell nice.
Incredible. And so, did you have any team members with, say, hard tech background, software background that you brought on to start testing and actually building something?
Yeah, great question. I'm not technical at all. I think I've learned like just enough to be dangerous to ask the right questions after 10 years, but I'm not technical. My mind doesn't work that way. So I was in business school when I was incubating this idea, and I brought on a handful of classmates to help me to give that, they were interested in startup experience. And for me, it was free labor. One of them had a technical background. So she was helpful in kind of those early phases as we brought on board an external product development group to build our first prototype on the cheap. So she was helpful in putting together some product requirements and working with them. And then once I graduated, and this went from a class project to a pseudo real business, then I brought my co-founder on board, who was a PhD in mechanical engineering, and then our first hire, who was a PhD in nuclear engineering. So then we kind of like started to really revamp and bolster up the technical side of the house.
Yes. So V1 of Tovala, which you're probably like, there were little parts here and there. Maybe it was a cardboard box, who knows? And it started to
Yes.
become the next versions. What was that testing process like in the beginning? And there are definitely some dupes out there now, not going to name names, of countertop ovens, but how did you all really land on the proprietary steam technology? I noticed that it definitely makes a difference with my food.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. We cycled through a bunch of different kinds of cooking appliances. The first product was kind of rice cooker-esque, and it had chambers. We moved away from that. And then in that interim period, we tested a whole bunch of different cooking appliances like slow cookers, panini presses, toaster ovens. Really, the guardrail for us was we want a product where we can put all of our food in it at once. So we don't want to have to stage the food going in because that would be really inconvenient for our customer. And we want to be able to make a lot of different kind of food. So it can't all be crock pot mush.
Right.
Those were the two rails. And so from there, we were open to whatever the appliance could ultimately look like. And I think we were hopeful we could find something that largely existed so we could get to market really fast and just build on top of that. And with steam ovens in particular, I learned about them when I was reading Nathan Myhrvold's book, The Modernist Cuisine, which is like this 5-tome massive book all about food. It's pretty crazy. And he's got like 20 pages on steam ovens, which are mostly used in the commercial space, not so common in the consumer space. But that was the first I'd learned of them. And they cook your food faster. They help retain moisture in your food. They're really powerful. And so I went to Amazon, typed in steam oven, and there was one steam oven that Cuisinart made. And I bought it and we started playing with it. And we're like, wow, this is pretty cool. Not only will it make our food taste a little better, but it's different. And it'll give us like another reason to believe when we're selling to consumers that like, oh, this oven is actually like really different and amazing.
Yes.
And at the time, I think because we had very little capital and no data, no revenue, we just made decisions very quickly. And it was like, okay, this is great. Like we should just do this. Let's build a steam oven. And didn't really think through all of the ramifications of that, which my team likes to remind me of a lot now. But that's how the decision was made. And, we have tons and tons of happy customers that love the Steam feature. So I think it was a good decision, all things considered.
Definitely. What were they worried about from those early days?
Yeah, it's more once you inject water into especially a device that is heating things up, makes things a lot more complicated on the manufacturing side.
Got it.
And it's like more risk and higher likelihood of returns and things going wrong, longer product development cycle. So more complicated than building without water, but we've made it work. We've made it work.
Yes. It's almost like you had to start thinking like probably like an electrical engineer at some parts of like,
Yeah.
is this going to just start everything on fire? Is this going to
Right.
short circuit people's houses? So that is so cool that you can think fondly of those days and, what it was like early on and how far it's come. But at the same time, you've stayed so true to that core mission the entire time. That same problem is still what you're solving 10 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't really pivoted from the very early idea. And I know some of that is maybe luck. Maybe some of that is stubbornness. Some of it is the market. I think we've seen a lot of success. So we haven't really moved away from what we were doing. But yeah, you're right. Like what we do today is not dramatically different from what we pitched we would do 10 years ago. Now, there's way more meals on the menu and we serve the whole country and there's 2 oven SKUs. Like it has grown a lot, but all within kind of the same vision as opposed to like we're selling blenders or we're selling software
Right.
to cooking companies. Like we don't do that. Like we sell a system, oven plus food, and that's been pretty tried and true for a long time.
Yeah. And you sticking to something so narrow, your own niche has seemed to pay off well instead of distracting you, like you said, of, okay, now let's go after all the other different appliances we could do within the kitchen.
Yeah. 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 And we got distracted. I, in particular, got distracted with a lot of shiny objects at some point during the journey, and none of them really worked. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But in hindsight, it was clear like we should have just stayed laser focused on this one thing until we were at a more mature stage to start to like explore offshoots.
Right. And I think that's just a good lesson for any business owner listening is get really good at one thing first that
Yeah.
you're passionate about, that you want to solve. And then you can start to, like you said, test, but really take your time doing it to talk to customers and figure out if it's actually something they want.
Totally. Totally.
So let's talk about the food aspect of things. Were you involved in any of the menu development early in the days here? Were you just an official taste tester? What was it like to get these very fresh meals? I will say, so this is not frozen. These are not, again, bad ingredients, and they're developed by actual chefs on your team. You've had Top Chef alum as part of your crew.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
really serious about this. This is not just,
Yeah.
again, like mush showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the like 2 most important things that we knew had to be true from the beginning was the food had to be amazing. And so much of what we built and designed has been around that core principle of this food has to taste amazing every time. And it has to be consistent. And the consistency comes from like, hey, we control every part of the equation. Like we make the food, we source the ingredients exactly to our specifications, we make the oven, we control how the food is cooked. So like the consistency is the unique part. And then, like you said, we have amazing chefs that make sure the food tastes amazing. So if we go all the way back, like I was the one designing the first recipes, not that we ever sold to customers, but that we were taking to investors. And then we had a group of chefs on the West Coast that were very creative and had worked in a bunch of fancy restaurants, like probably a little too fancy for what we ultimately wanted to do. But they designed some recipes for us pro bono in the early days.
Nice.
Then we met someone that was a chef at a senior living home, and she designed some recipes for us when we were in Y Combinator and we were doing a lot of product testing then. So her name was Cecilia. She did a lot of stuff for us. And then after that, we hired our own chefs. And at that point, I delegated. His name was Alex. Delegated to Alex, and he came up with a bunch of the early recipes that I think were pretty tied to how I ate and what I envisioned the menu would be, but call it a joint vision of how the menu should evolve. And I was pretty involved early on in trying every meal and making sure it fit to what I thought we should do. And then once we launched, like we tried to lean to customer feedback and listen to what was working and not working. And the menu has evolved a lot since those early days. I think it looks pretty different from what it did then. The size of the menu is totally different. The kind of food that we sell is pretty different. But as you said, the core principle is still the same. Like we are sending you clean raw chicken breast or salmon fillet or shrimp or whatever it is. And that's cooking from scratch, just by scanning a code.
Yes, you add the little spice packets on, perhaps, maybe some water to some rice or noodles, a sauce, things along those lines. And I think that I entered falling in love with cooking food later in life because I think there was also that fear that I'm somehow going to make it taste bad or I'm somehow going to do it wrong, especially meat. I will say I am still kind of squeamish sometimes, but the Tovala, like again, not paid to say this, just really does cook chicken breasts, particularly in a way that does not dry it out. And I think that did lead to some confidence when, if I'm not making a Tovala meal that's quick and simple and already ready to go, it's okay, I can actually test with the settings myself and know that's going to be okay. You mentioned Y Combinator. So, again, one of the best accelerators here in the country. Everyone thinks tech usually. So, what was it like to be a consumer brand specifically with hard tech software and really a food focus going through that? Because from 2015 until now, investors are still not as bullish on consumer investments and foods, particularly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. We were definitely like a bit of an odd duckling. But the cool thing about consumer and food, it's a double-edged sword. Everyone has an opinion.
Yes.
And so we were able to like talk to anyone in YC, anyone wanted to try our product. So I think it got us a lot of like interesting exposure that maybe isn't true if you're building like a SaaS product. But there were not many consumer hardware businesses and very few food businesses too. What's interesting is like some of the big ones have gone through YC. Instacart went through YC, DoorDash went through YC, Gobble went through YC, but most of them are more software businesses than like handling the food themselves. But nevertheless, like the principles of how to build a great startup are universal, regardless of what is the thing that you're selling, whether it's a physical good or it's food or it's software, it's the same stuff. And so I think we took away a ton from the experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like it was a great life experience for us. And I think opened a lot of doors that otherwise wouldn't have opened.
Amazing. So, what was it like upon launch? Do you remember when exactly you launched? How many customers? Did you have any lined up already? Or was it just put it out on the internet and see who comes?
Yeah, good question. So there were 3 parts to our launch. We did a Kickstarter campaign in March of 2016, and we did a lot of work in advance of that Kickstarter to try to ensure that it would be successful. So a lot of demos, a lot of like building lists of people, soliciting our network to try to buy, and then a lot of press, and all those things worked. Like we ended up selling about 1,000 units on Kickstarter.
Wow.
And then we shipped to those customers just about a year later. And then in advance of that, we had to convince those people to order food.
Yeah.
So they had bought the oven on Kickstarter, but we didn't have a mechanism to sell them food. So we had to upsell them food, which I think probably like 50% of people ended up trying, 60%. So not everyone, but a healthy amount. And then what we decided to do was just work with those customers for 2 months, as opposed to like also trying to acquire new customers. So because it was this huge shift for us going from just building and then all of a sudden you're operating. And because we make our own food and ship it across the country, operating our business is not just you push some buttons on a keyboard and it does its thing. Like there's a huge operational component and then customer service component to it. So we decided, hey, let's run this business for 2 months and not worry about bringing in new people. And then we'll go do like a big public launch. And so for those 2 months, we manned customer service ourselves. We took that feedback and went right to the chefs or the engineers and really iterated on what was working and not working. And I think big picture, like it was a really validating couple months as we learned people loved the product. They wanted more of the food. So we saw reorder rates were high and higher than we expected. And it just gave us a lot of confidence to go launch and get new people. And so then we launched in July of 17. And that was amazing. Like we launched and we were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal the day of our launch, which was like incredible. Yeah. And not deserving. Like we were a team of 19 and a totally hacky startup behind the scenes. And we got this glowing review. And, you know, the story I can tell now in hindsight is like, we had no idea how to market our product and we sold way fewer than we should have, with the publicity and attention that we got for those kind of few days. And it took us a couple of years to really figure out how to market Tovala. And we just didn't know it. I think we were riding our own high for a while before we could see with clear eyes that we were really missing something pretty important when it came to marketing.
And what do you think that was? Why do you think that, outside of friends and family who wanted to support you, Why do you think folks were coming to you initially? And then what were you doing to tweak that message so that you could reach bigger and higher heights?
Yeah. I mean, I think Kickstarter is its own kind of unique beast, and it just attracts early adopters that want to try new things. And we got such good press in advance of that Kickstarter that I think that alone explained how we got those first 1,000 customers. And then after that, I think we like really didn't know what we were doing when it came to pricing or positioning. And so it was like we'd find a few customers every day. A lot of it was word of mouth because we had really happy customers. But other than that, I think it was like finding a needle in a haystack in terms of finding people to get to buy the thing. And it wasn't until we like blew up all of our marketing that we really figured out how to grow.
And what would your recommendation be? What if you were launching Tovala this year, 2025? What do you think? You're like, oh, wow. What do
Yeah.
you think you would have done differently? Or what would you recommend to a founder in a similar space who's saying, how the heck do I get through all this noise and get my message across so people really buy what I'm selling here?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is marketing 101 that we just ignored. And like just customer feedback is
Mm,
so valuable. It's always so valuable, but especially when you're looking for product market fit, talking to all manners of customers. So people that do love your product, people that hate your product. And then for us, the biggest aha was people that were like intrigued by our product, but had not purchased it and
mm,
for those barriers. Because it was for us at the time, it wasn't about awareness. Like we knew we could get attention because we had this really interesting product, but people weren't buying once they came to our website. And it wasn't until we started talking to those people to like really peel back the onion on what were those reasons that we figured out what we needed to change. And then we systematically went and changed all the things we heard. And lo and behold, conversion rates started to go up a lot and we started to grow super fast.
I could geek out on this all day. So, what do you think then? Who is the target customer that you were able to peel the onion on? And what are they solving at the end of the day? Is it the same mission that you had at the beginning, which was, I just really need to save time with food and I want it to taste great and just get this done quickly? Or what were their purposes too?
Yeah. I think one thing we still struggle with, have always struggled with, is there's a lot of different use cases for Tovala and like centering in on which is the right one to talk about and to market has always been a bit of a challenge for us. The core target customer has, I'd say, evolved a little bit over time, but not dramatically. And it is what you alluded to. But today her name is Sam. A few years ago, her name was something else. But today her name is Sam and she's in her mid to late 30s. She is busy, has a really like high bar for what she wants to eat. Like she wants to eat good food. She wants to outsource things that are not totally essential in her life. She wants brands that are like relatable and not perfect in every way. And maybe she has really young kids, maybe she doesn't, but that's the smack dab target customer. Maybe she's got a partner, maybe not. Like it's still the same problem to solve around I want really good food. I don't have time for it. But if you ask Sam about her parents or her grandparents, they're also good customers of ours. And it's a different problem that we're solving. It's no longer about time for parents. It's that they don't want a cooking, but they still want something that's made from scratch and tastes really good. And for her grandparents, it might be that like they can't cook anymore, but they still want something that's cooked from scratch. Their kids want to make sure that they're eating well, and their kids order their meals for them, set up their oven from them. But the actual cooking is so easy that the grandparents can do it well into their 90s. So we have all of those customers and like good amounts of them. They're not small pockets that I think has made this always a bit of a challenge, but also convinced us that like the market is really big for what we're doing.
Yes. And I feel like your target customer, they almost grew up with you, right?
Right.
So maybe back in the day, you thought maybe they're in their 20s, maybe they're in their early 30s, they're young professionals, they're moving fast. And now they're millennials like myself,
Early.
who, again, there's like a higher focus on health as well, because yes,
Totally.
there are many meal kits or food delivery options out there on the market, but trying to find things that are fresh ingredients and not full of fillers has been just such a huge shift for everyone and a good one.
Totally. Yes. Very good.
Yes. Let's talk about a big moment again that we mentioned a little bit earlier. You've worked with an incredible publicist, Rachel Gilman, and she did her magic. You landed on Oprah's favorite things list. And
Yeah.
to me, Oprah is still our queen. She is one of the OG influencers who can convince anyone that if you follow Oprah's lifestyle, you too will be a billionaire in Montecito's one day. So, what was that moment like for you all? This is leading up to the holidays. Did you expect that that would happen? And what was the big rush that was happening throughout the office and the facilities?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a very crazy time for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, Rachel had reached out to, I think this guy's name was Adam, and he is the creative director for Gayle King, I believe. This is how it reached out to him on Instagram. And they had like a little repartee. And it's like, I think Gayle would be interested in this. So we got Gayle at Tovala, and then I got on a Zoom call with Gayle, helped her set up the Tovala, walked her through what it does.
Oh my gosh.
And then she became like a super user and was using it regularly. And I think Rachel continued to be in touch with Adam. And then everything that happened from there was behind the scenes, like not visible to us. And then maybe they told us like a week or two before that we ended up on the list. But, I think Gayle brought it to Oprah and was like, hey, I've got this cool new product that I'm using. I can't leave my apartment because of the pandemic. And, it's worked out great for me, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of that back half of 2021 was like a very frothy time for startups and direct to consumer. And we were definitely caught up in that as well. So the business was already growing very, very quickly outside of Oprah, and we were opening a new facility in Utah at the time. So there just was a lot happening all at once within a couple months span that it's hard to separate any part of it. But there was a lot of energy and excitement for sure around kind of all things Tovala.
Holy cow. Were you all then on 24 hours essentially for that holiday period of making sure orders are going out correctly and just figuring out how to make it feel a little more seamless?
I wouldn't say 24/7. Like we've never run a true 24/7 operation. Maybe I take that back. Maybe there's someone awake at all times, but for the most part, it's not. But yes, for, periods of Q4, it was very stressful, and opening a new facility at the same time to time take in all this new demand was pretty chaotic, and preparing for a fundraise at the same time. So there's a lot of things happening all together. Yeah. But again, really exciting.
Yeah.
It was a very positive time for us.
For sure. And my favorite is other folks who are like, it's good to have everything happen at once because you just stay busy. You just keep it moving. There is no other option. If you have one just big thing at the time, then you do stress out a little bit about it more.
Right. Yeah, for sure. There was almost too much going on to stress too much.
Right. So let's talk fundraising a little bit here. What do you think was the hook early on for Tovala, and how do you think that's changed over the years? Like you mentioned, 2021 was like a really happy time in fundraising. And the last few years, along with just the rest of the economic trends that we're experiencing right now, it's been a little bit tougher. So what have you found that's worked really well as a consumer business that decided to be venture backed?
Yeah, I mean, I think our early rounds, it was some part vision and some part just people. Like before there was too much to bet on, it was like a bet on me and the early team. And then before we had customers, it was a bet on the product. So there was especially one round in particular where the product was like ready for prime time, but we didn't have customers, but people could see what it was going to be. That was actually pretty easy to fundraise because there was no data to poke holes in, and you could just try the beautiful and delicious miso salmon.
Right.
And also that round, there were a number of people that invested that had said no because they were skeptical we could get points. So that was also a good lesson of like, just because you hear no once, if you bring people along for the journey and show them you're going to do what you said you were going to do, they might come around. And then once we launched, then all of a sudden there was all this data. And so it was really easy to poke holes and say, well, this doesn't look good or that doesn't look good. And, for us, because we're consumer, because we're food, there's been a lot of like macro events outside of our control that have changed people's excitement or negativity about the category, whether that's Blue Apron going public or Amazon buying Whole Foods. Like there were things that soured investors on our category for periods of our journey. And then in 2020 and 2021, we had started growing really fast even before the pandemic. And so it became much easier to raise capital because we were growing super fast. We have, the thing that really defines the business is great customer retention. No one else has that. So like the combo of those two things, plus the pandemic, it was like relatively easy for us to raise a lot of money over the course of 2020. And then 2022, everything changed.
Yeah.
And it was like investors now want profitability, consumers out of favor, interest rates are going up. And it was like things changed so much faster than I expected. And that was a really good lesson for me. And we were lucky. We raised a good amount of capital in May of 2022. Most of it came from our existing investors. And I think had we waited another 6 months, like maybe that wouldn't have materialized. But we raised that money and kind of decided at that point, like, we'll try to raise more, but we have to let this money last forever. And we have to get the business to profitability. And so that became the rallying cry for 2 years, 2.5 years. And we did it. We got the business profitable.
Wow.
And so we haven't raised money in almost 3.5 years.
Incredible.
Which is great. Yeah. It's relieved a lot of stress off my shoulders.
Yes.
That was like a hard part of the journey for sure, was getting the business profitable.
My goodness. Congratulations. That is truly so commendable. And there's a lot of mixed feelings that happened with that shift in mentality over the last few years. I mean, in some ways, if you think about the Midwest particularly, I think that investors, especially in the consumer space, always wanted you to build the fire, I like to say, before they put any sort of kindling on, versus certain other areas or even areas of the country, they'd be like, amazing, let's start it from scratch together. You seem awesome. This idea is awesome. Whereas Chicagoans, again, who was always pushing just our ability to be determined and work through hard times and essentially building something that is just a good foundation and has a strong ability to be profitable feels like a very Midwestern mentality. So in some ways, it makes things tougher because how do you get to profitability if you don't get help to just grow in the first place? But it also does teach that good lesson of this is just strong business principles that we should all be relying on versus the dream of, Uber and Lyft and say even Grubhub in those early days where it was grow as fast as possible. No one cares how much money you're losing. It'll be fine in the end. And that bubble burst.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it worked out for us. Like if I could have picked my own future, I probably would not have taken the business to profitability as early as we did. Like it wasn't the natural thing to do. And that's because we weren't planning for it. Like I think if we had started in 2015 and said, okay, we want to build a profitable business by day 1 or by year 3, we would have done things differently. And instead it was like, okay, we have to get to profitability now. So we're going to change a lot of our strategy. It wasn't totally right in kind of the long arc, but it's worked out. So, like no complaints about it, but it was like you signed up for one game and then they changed the rules of the game and we had to like readapt to the new rules. But that's the reality. It's been a good lesson to learn. It's like the rules will get rewritten multiple times if you start a company and you survive for long enough.
Yes. And it's all about just staying alive and pushing through those tough times. Anyone I've talked to on this podcast, 2025 is being compared to 2020. Not the exact same reasons, but there have been a number of difficulties for food, bev, hospitality, agriculture this year. What has your team been doing to essentially put the armor on, push through this fight because prices are raising across the board?
I think we are a very battle-tested company, having gone through some of what I shared with you and some other existential moments we didn't get into. So not to say this year hasn't been challenging, like it has. Tariffs have impacted our business in lots of different ways. Food prices are up, like all that is true. But in kind of the longer arc of our company's story, this year has not been so hard. And it is like a true core value of ours to embrace the obstacles. So we're doing great. All things considered, like this will end up being a very good year for us.
I'm glad to hear that. And to just keep a smile on your faces throughout all of it.
Totally.
What do you personally do to stay sane? as a founder of 10 plus years now?
Yeah, I've got like a lot of my own hacks. I've been an exercise addict since I was 19. So like that is certainly a part of what keeps myself sane. I try to go outside a lot. That has helped a lot. And I just try to maintain a lot of balance and spend a lot of time with my kids. And again, I think back to like how crazy certain chapters of this story were. I think it's brought me a lot of perspective. And I've also never really struggled to delegate. And that helps. It's like I've hired amazing people and empowered them, which they also like. They have a lot of responsibility over the direction of the company. And it just relieves a lot of the stress from my shoulders.
Yeah. And I'm sure because you take that mentality, then everyone else can feel a little more even keeled. And that, again, you guys are doing great work, you're doing hard work, but at the end of the day, it's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
No one's life is on the line, hopefully.
Yes, totally. Totally.
So I know you and I are chatting in fall, but if you're in food, if you're in consumer, we've been thinking about the holidays since July. Is there anything special that we can look forward to in terms of Tovala for the holidays? I know you guys like to do some Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals usually.
Yes, we will do something very special for Black Friday. We're going to do some very out of the box marketing that people will see over the course of the holidays, stuff that we've never done before. Some collaborations and partnerships, some like pretty entertaining content. All that should be coming from the brand. And then there is a pretty big product initiative that is underway that will be for our current customers to begin with, probably one of the biggest product things we've ever done. And then assuming that goes well, we'll roll it out broadly next year.
So cool. I can't wait for that. I've loved your collaborations in the past. I loved the Jesse Tyler Ferguson team up. I mean, people love to see someone that they look up to and recognize, or like Gayle King or Oprah, like, oh, they eat just like me.
Right. Exactly. Tovala is for everyone.
Tovala is for everyone. How do you like to personally use Tovala the most? What are you doing on the day to day with this little thing?
Yeah, it's changed over time. And now I eat Tovala for lunch as opposed to eating it for dinner. And then for dinner, we use it to cook. So I like to use it to roast a lot of vegetables. And in the mornings, it's our toaster. So our Tovala probably gets used 50 times a month, 60 times a month. It gets a lot of use.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd say ours is definitely on multiple times a week. Again, whether I'm in a phase where I'm like, no, I'm cooking more, I'm on the stovetop, and then, something's baking in there, which is awesome. Again, or roasting, like you said, or like we are in a full meal zone with Tovala right now. Life is crazy. Pop it in. I also love that my partner, well, Tim, but for the other folks who listen in here, my partner and I, we can have different taste in food and not get the exact same meals. And even though you can cook them back to back, it's only 20 minutes or so a piece. Or let's say his day is he's running later and I could eat earlier and he can eat later. And it still doesn't feel totally disjointed.
Also, fun fact, there are some meals that you can cook at the same time, which is like Tovala insider hack that we've all heard. How do we communicate that to our customers?
Oh my goodness. My recommendation as a customer and just someone in marketing is adding that as some sort of just wording right there on the recipe cards that you have. Like, hey, you like this, order this combination next time, and you can actually cook them at the same time, or your additional QR codes that you have on there.
Right. Yeah. We need to figure that out.
Oh my gosh, it's like we got the secret menu right now.
Yeah, it starts with the protein. That's the key. Like if you have 2 chicken dishes, they cook differently, but some cook the same.
Yes.
And then you can have your meal at the same exact time.
Okay. I'm ready for the hacks, like when you guys are ready to release them in a way that you feel is comfortable, because we would love to test it out.
Okay. I love it.
I can't believe we're here, David. We're on our last few questions before we get to the world's best and hardest question. What would you say you're most proud of with everything you've built to date? What do you want to continue to grow? And what do you think is next in the journey?
I think I'm probably most proud of the culture that we've built at Tovala. We try to be very people-centric and create a place that people love to work, people can grow and develop and learn new skills, people are treated well compensated, all of the above. And I think we've done that. We have a lot of people that have been with us for a very long time. And I think that's one of the central reasons why. And I think that comes out in a lot of what we do internally. So that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. And I hope that kind of continues as we keep growing and our profile grows.
Yes. And what do you think is next? Is there something that you dream about for the future? Is it Tovala brick and mortar? Is it new products that you haven't dabbled in yet? Maybe new
I
additional
think
food items?
the biggest thing for us is awareness. We still feel like we have pretty limited awareness considering how big the business is and how much people love our product that are actively using it. And so that is probably the number one thing on our minds is how can we get more people aware of Tovala and get Tovala in the conversation? And so if there's one thing we hope changes between now and say the end of next year, it's that we're in the conversation and a lot more people know who we are.
Yes. And you'll hear that cute little ba-da-doo when things are ready in more homes.
The jingle.
I love that. I love an appliance that sings to me. So
Yeah.
it's such a nice
Well,
part.
maybe we'll sing other songs next year. Who knows?
Goodness. We're getting all the deep dives right now.
Yeah.
What's a piece of advice for anyone who is looking to get in tech, the culinary spaces, really just be an entrepreneur, anything that they want to start on their own?
Probably the best piece of advice is to just do it. I think so many people have ideas and concoct reasons to not go after them. And I think once you start, it's just about putting one foot in front of the other and things will happen, but just got to take the leap.
Yes. Yes. And you'll regret it, I think, if you don't even try.
Yep. Totally.
Even if you fail, I had a failed startup. However, I learned so many lessons. I met the love of my life, and everything has led me to where I am today.
There you go. There you go. I totally agree.
Yes. Here we are, David. So a little reminder to everyone, this is called the Perfect Bite because it's a perfect bite of the folks across our value chain who are building businesses for our future, but also because we all have our own perfect bites. So a memory, a recipe, something you ate that was so delicious you'll never forget. So David, what is your perfect bite?
What a great question.
People have called it demonic.
I can tell you where my head went.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's the best answer to your question, but our chef designed a miso glazed salmon with edamame brown rice and broccoli.
Oh, wow.
And we were sourcing super high quality salmon. Not that we don't now, but this was very expensive salmon that didn't make any sense for our margins. And that meal was like the defining meal for 2 years of our kind of story in some ways. And that singular meal helped us raise a lot of money and still is the meal that I think defines that first chapter. So that's what I'm going to say. Miso glazed salmon.
And it's delicious too. I think
Yeah.
that is a perfect answer for you.
Yeah.
I also see it as one, it's the example of restaurant ready food. This is very much Nobu is known for its miso glazed salmon. So it's bringing a place like Nobu to your own kitchen, which is exactly what Tovala wants to do.
I love that. Nobu in your home kitchen.
Seriously. Oh, now I really, I'm like, now I want some salmon. David, this has been incredible. Can you let listeners know where to find you and Tovala? So the website, social accounts, and anywhere else that we should be looking for you all.
Sure. Yeah. Just Tovala.com and we're Tovala Food on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for your time, your stories. Just so fun to be here the whole time. Thank you.
It was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. This was David Rabie's Perfect Bite. Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media @PerfectBitePod. Now go get something good to eat.